want more of me?
Me?
Go to MeTVFresno.com for schedules, information on your favorite shows, videos, pictures, and more. Go to MeTVFresno.com today. Exclusively brought to you by Ventura TV.
Hi, I'm John Mallos. Welcome to this edition, a special edition of Connect with Me on Comcast Channel 187 and 43.6 on MeTV Fresno. Today we're talking about the water crisis, the drought right here in the Central Valley, the lack of water, the lack of storage. What are politicians doing about it? Sorry, no phone calls on this day. A special program, an expert in the house talking about it, a media person who knows the ins, the outs, and the major players. Back with our program in just a moment. It's a special program on the water crisis, the drought, the lack of water, and everything else. I mean, you know all about Millerton Lake. In fact, President Obama, you may recall, was here a couple of months back on February the 14th. He came off of Air Force One. He met with Jim Costa, Dianne Feinstein, Barbara Boxer. But David Valadao and Devin Nunes were absent. They were not invited to come on this trip that took place back in February. So he came here, he offered a couple of $100 million to try to ease the pain for the farmers. Let's go to the videotape and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. Take a look at Millerton Lake right now. Only about 40% capacity, my friends. Usually the mound that you see there in the center of your screen is underwater. As you can see, it's fully exposed now. Since the Obama visit to the Central Valley, though, there have been 3 water rallies, one in Fireball, one in Fresno at City Hall, and in Tulare. Not only that, the government is spending hundreds of thousands of dollars right now to try to save some 900 Chinook salmon because 38 miles downstream from Millerton, the water runs out. The salmon are being moved to where the Merced River empties out. Hey, on top of that, you have the east side, the west side farmers at odds with each other over water. We'll talk about that. And also, there was a bill in Congress right now to try to increase the pumps to get more water to the farmers in the Central Valley. But looking at that mound in the center of Millerton is simply astonishing, my friends. Live in our studio right now is Patrick Cavanaugh, a longtime editor for agriculture publications, including Power Talk 96.7 on your FM dial. He does the report there. In fact, he's on in the mornings on weekends with Rich Rodriguez there. He has been in the business 30 years. He also knows the players, the ins and outs of this water issue. He covered, of course, many of these water rallies, especially the last one in Tulare, so he can talk about that. Sorry, there are no phone calls on this day. A special edition of Connect with Me on MeTV Fresno, the water crisis here in the Central Valley. We're back with our program in just a moment.
When you're looking for KitchenAid innovation and quality, who has the answers, the selection, the price? Ventura TV Appliance. With billions in nationwide appliance buying power, more than Home Depot and Best Buy combined, will help you save. Our low prices on Energy Star qualified KitchenAid appliances save you energy and money and pay no interest on select models when paid in full within 12 months. Ventura TV Appliance, serving you since 1951.
We're back here talking about the water crisis. I know this is an on the air, off the presses, but we're talking with Patrick Cavanaugh, who's a longtime member of the media covering the water crisis. Good to see you. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Hey, it's great to have you on the program here, finally.
It's my pleasure. I'm glad we can be here to talk about the most important thing in agriculture, and that's the number one resource that farmers need, and that's water.
It's amazing. I mean, I talked about the 3 water rallies.
Yeah.
Did you cover all 3 of them?
I covered all 3. All 3 were very robust. There was a lot of speakers, a lot of frustration out there, John. It's an amazing. It is so critical because there's such a big overreach of the ESA, the enviros out there, pushing to take as much water as they can, and the farmers are saying, "Give us a little bit of this water. Give us something that we can provide the food for the nation."
And why won't they?
Their idea, their goal is to take as much as they can and get it out there, push it out to the ocean to provide habitat for the species that are that are being threatened there, to push out the salt water. First of all, this year is like the perfect storm. Not enough rain, not enough snow.
And no storage.
And very little storage, even if we had the rain and snow. There was no storage. If we had some storage, we would be able to keep a little bit of that fell, in February and March. Quite a bit.
So this
of that.
sounds to me, Patrick, like they're just basically saying, the government's saying, and the environmentalists, this is the environmental issue. It has to do with the fish, the fisheries, the salmon, of course, the salmon run. People want to save the salmon. They also want to save the smelt, there's no question about it. But why are they just saying, the heck with the farmers? Don't they realize where their food comes from?
That's one of the big frustrations. We just don't understand. The ag industry doesn't understand their ultimate goals. We think it's not even the fish right now. They just want to stop farming in the Central Valley. They don't.
Why? They want to stop farming?
Well, the
environmentalists or the politicians?
The environmentalists and some of the Democratic politicians on their side, like George Miller.
Farming.
They're on the record as saying, look, this is a desert. And they shouldn't be using all this water to provide the crops and nutrition.
Been farming here for how many years?
Exactly, right, exactly. When there's plenty of rain and snow, on average, we do have plenty of rain and snow, and enough for the fish and enough for farmers. There's no problem. But when there's a shortage of water, then all of a sudden these new goals come out. And that's hey, we don't need farming. We don't need to eat almonds to stay healthy. We don't need to eat walnuts.
So have you interviewed some of these environmental people and some politicians who've actually told you that farming should not take place here in the Central Valley because
absolutely,
it's a desert?
Absolutely. George Miller from the Bay Area is on the record. He's on the congressional record saying they should not be farming in the Central Valley.
What's his reasoning?
Basically, it's the fact that this is a desert. We had to change the entire water flow of the state of California, build dams and everything, so that the farmers can farm their crops with all these canals and all this, the state water project and the federal water projects. And if we don't have enough water, they should not get water because we don't need these crops.
Where should we get our food, according to Miller?
That's the big question. We don't know what's on his mind for what we eat. From now on, they're going to control what we eat. They're going to control. Ultimately, they're going to control where we get our food, either from Mexico, either from China.
Chile?
Maybe Florida can grow all that we need. Maybe Texas can grow all we need because they don't have the ESA problems in those areas.
It's amazing. I want to put up a videotape of Temperance Flat because this is a project that's controversial. It's been talked about many times. Of course, this would sit above Millerton. It would basically be a storage area. Whenever it rained, you would save a certain amount of water here for a rainy day, meaning a dry day. Okay, how much would a Temperance help?
Temperance Flat would be an enormous help.
But wouldn't they be fighting over that too?
Well,
how much to save?
Yeah,
how much
of course. ESA, the environmental impact has not even been decided yet. They're going to flood another valley, a big valley. It's going to be 3 times more storage than Millerton Lake when it is built, and it's going to allow more hydroelectric. And there's an environmental impact there as well. How much power is produced there? There's a footprint there.
But there'll be infighting about how much to let out.
Exactly, there will be, and that will, Millerton, Temperance Flat will in fact allow more water to be released through the Bryant Dam into the San Joaquin River to meet that co-equal goal that farmers in the Bay, in the Delta, and the enviros want to help these species move up and down the rivers, or help these species enable some kind of pathway to spawn, particularly the Chinook salmon, to get up the river.
Talking about that story in the Fresno Bee just recently, and I know you've covered this. So they're talking about the government, the Bureau of Reclamation, talking about saving 900 Chinook salmon. And you got to figure they're spending hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to try to save these salmon, move them over toward the Merced River, because the water, is not cold enough for the salmon, or what?
Well, it's not cold enough. It's not. It's too shallow. It's too warm for the Chinook salmon to swim up. So what
And to survive,
and
right?
So they're putting them in where there is a trickle of water and hoping they'll swim up the river, bump their noses against the Friant Dam, somehow spawn there and come back down. And if we can possibly, it's an embarrassment really in terms of what the Bureau of Reclamation has done to try to make this happen. They're doing it because the farmers saying, hey, we reduced the San Joaquin River restoration has caused all this loss of water to the east side and west side of the valley, and you guys have done nothing at all to make anything happen in terms of the fish. We gave up the water for the fish. Where's the fish? See, it can't happen. We told you so. But now they're trying to just do something so they can save face.
Water rallies. We talked about that at top here. 3 of them. I mean, when I filled in for Bill Manders over on Power Talk, I mentioned that these water rallies, Ilya, that was my opinion, they're not doing any good. What good are these water rallies doing?
They're sending a message to at least the state Water Resources Control Board, which incidentally recently allowed 5% water to come down the state water project. Now, they were first at 5% earlier in the spring, and then they reduced it to 0 when it looks like we weren't getting enough rainfall. Now they've reversed their decision as allowing 5% more, which represents about 57,000 acre-feet for the southern San Joaquin Valley. Not enough, and plus, they're not allowed to use that water until after September 1st of this year.
Are there any more water rallies planned?
No other water rallies that we know of, nothing on the schedule right now. But those water rallies were full of passion, full of speakers, and they are sending a message to not only the state, but also the federal government. People are filming this. There's a lot of press on this. It gets into Washington. Feinstein sees this. She's aware of it. The congressional,
So in your
obviously,
opinion, your
Congress,
professional
both sides.
opinion, it is doing some good.
Yes, I think so. Hey, we can't be silent on this. We can't ever give up. We have to stay vigilant on this and keep pointing out the folly of the whole thing, the entire Endangered Species Act.
Publicity is good, is what you're saying for this.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Talking to Patrick Cavanaugh. He's been covering the water issues and farming issues here he's a member of the media on the radio for many, many years, 30-plus years. He's an expert. He has a show that he shares with Rich Rodriguez on the weekends on Power Talk 96.7 FM on your dial. We're going to be back with our special program here on Connect with Me on MeTV Fresno in just a moment.
This black and white patrol car has an overhead valve V8 engine. It develops 325 horsepower at 4,800 RPMs. It accelerates from 0 to 60 in 7 seconds. It has a top speed of 120 miles an hour. The automobile has 2 shotgun racks, one attached to the bottom portion of the front seat, one in the vehicle trunk.
You want me to drive?
Now on MeTV Fresno, Xfinity 187.
Talking with Patrick Cavanaugh. Patrick, tell us a little bit about your show on Power Talk 96.7. And of course, I filled in for the one and only, the great Bill Manders over there for a couple of weeks while he's back. And thank God, knock on wood, he is back and he's sounding great. Tell us your times and your schedules when you're on and exactly what you do.
I'm proud to say that I'm at 5:30 a.m. Every morning, every weekday morning, and also about 8:30.
On Power
Talk, and we're on the Power Talk stations in Visalia, Fresno, Modesto, and San Joaquin.
That's great.
In Stockton, and we're on 8 other radio stations throughout California, from Brawley to Chico. We cover the breadth of California.
And you're on with Rich Rodriguez as well.
Yes, we are. With the tape program, we send it in to him. He downloads it, and he uses it about the bottom of the hour, about 8:30.
Okay, and that's on weekends? Or?
On Saturdays. On Saturdays, yeah.
Just on Saturdays?
Yes.
On Saturdays. All right, I want to roll the tape from when President Obama came here, and then we're going to show some farmland that is incredibly dry. President was here in the Central Valley, landed it with Air Force One on February the 14th, right around 2 o'clock or 2:30 in the afternoon. You may recall that. And he exited the plane, Air Force One, with Jim Costa right behind him, Barbara Boxer, Dianne Feinstein. I do believe I promised you the videotape. Are we going to roll that videotape? Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. There is the president coming down the steps, and there is the dry farmland. And so the question to you, Patrick, is what good did it do? He offered up a couple of $100 million to help farmers, but what good did the president's visit do here to the Central Valley?
We questioned that because, of course, the Fresno visit was part of a longer visit he was going to spend on the West Coast. He after Fresno, he went to Palm Springs and played golf for 4 days. But at the same time, we were grateful that the President of the United States came to this valley to see what was happening.
And this is what he saw, dry farmland.
And he was seeing this farmland, and when it was Marine One, they flew for a half an hour as they approached Joe Del Bosque's farm out there in the Fireball area.
Yeah.
And they had a meeting, a big round table meeting, lots of different people in the water business, the water industry, the Department of Water Resources, and a lot of the exchange contractors were there. And they made some statements, and they had a press conference, and President Obama did promise that he would go back and not forget what he saw. And maybe that's something
You
that
believe him?
Well, he said it, and we're going to hold him to it.
Who's going to hold him to
Because
it? Because,
hey, you said this, and you said this, and the congressional and the Republicans saw this, and you said you're in Fresno. We have tape. You're not going to forget about this. If something is available to help the farmers out here, he's going to have to revisit this.
The question I have, when I look at that videotape of that farmland, even if we had the amount of water that the farmers need, could we reverse the trend and fix that dry farmland?
Not this year, not even close.
How long would it take?
It's going to take, it could take next year. I mean, we get
Could it take 5 years?
Well, it could take
to
longer than
restore
that.
some of those farms?
What you saw, the dry, fallowed fields were annual crops. And I took a trip on the west side just last week. I drove for 10 miles on Highway 33 from north to south. And for the 10 miles, I looked at both the left and right side of that road and saw nothing but fallow fields. But if they had rain, such as an El Nino comes this year.
Trying to reverse that trend almost seems impossible overnight.
If we get an El Nino, let's just say an El Nino comes, there are enormous storms and enormous rain and snowfall, we can have enough water even in the storage, fill up those storage, all the storage we have, we could get back to like a 40 to 50% allocation, and that's enough for farmers to get these crops planted and use them well.
Here's what I don't get. The Friant Water Authority, they represent the east side farmers.
Right.
They probably represent, thousands of
There's
farmers?
15,000 farms.
15,000 farmers. The Friant Water Authority, those folks out there, they were represented at the Tulare rally.
Right.
They were in Fresno. They were in Fireball. But they're the ones who struck the deal with the San Joaquin River Restoration Project back in 2008, saying that they can make all these releases downstream. In other words, the Friant Water Authority, which represents these farmers, struck the deal with the environmental groups, the devil.
Exactly.
Why did they do that, Patrick?
Because not doing it would have been worse. You had to agree.
What?
You had to agree. Well, if they were compromising with us, we'll allow you to have a certain amount of water at a certain amount of time, but you have to allow us to take water at a certain amount of time as well. If you didn't strike a deal, they were going to take it all. And you had to compromise with them.
They basically gave water away.
They did, and that's part of it was done during a time when there was a little extra water around, so the urgency of what are we doing? What are we doing here? We can't let this water go down. It wasn't so urgent then to think about it.
I should probably retract that. They didn't sign the deal with the devil, but the enemy, I should say.
Sure.
The enemy.
Sure.
So they're the ones that want to take the water, so they strike the deal. Okay, you can have the water. And it was signed into Congress when Pelosi was obviously the speaker and the Democrats were in control. 2008. Can they do anything to overturn this?
Well, they're trying to with some of these bills. H.R. 3964, the Valadeo bill, was trying to reverse that. That's not going to happen.
Because why? You're not going to get the
Well, you're not going to get the
board.
environmentalists to do that. And in fact, Friant Water Authority is not on the record to support any bills at all. They're kind of
Why?
Because there's a very political thing here, and they don't want either Feinsteins or Valadeos. They're trying to find something in the middle. In fact,
But
Mario Santoyo.
it's almost like they're hypocrites because they signed this deal in 2008. Now they're out there rallying for water in 3 different cities.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, isn't it hypocritical?
I wouldn't say it was hypocritical. The farmers have been under severe regulations, severe changes every year for the last 20 years. This is just another change. This is another regulation they have to deal with. And the virals have an enormous amount of power, and when they can take that water, when they have an edge with their attorneys and have an edge, when there's a Democratic president or a Democratic Congress, they can make things happen that are completely unreasonable.
I'm glad you're here today. Patrick Cavanaugh, our expert on water, on the air, off the presses. You can listen to him each and every day on Power Talk 96.7 on all the Power Talk stations. We're going to be back with our special program. No phone calls today. We're on tape. We're talking about the water crisis here in the Central Valley. Back in just a moment.
Do you like me?
Just like me.
Like MeTV Fresno on Facebook. Get the latest news, interact with others, watch videos, become a fan of me. Exclusively brought to you by Ventura TV.
Back here on the program, connect with me on Comcast, 187 43.6. Okay, we talked about the Friant Water Authority here, Patrick, and the deal they struck with the San Joaquin River Restoration Project back in 2008. It was signed into law by Pelosi and the gang there back then when the Democrats controlled Congress. Email from Congressman Devin Nunes. Let's put that first one up on the screen. And this came... and leave that up there because I want to talk about this for a minute and I want to read it verbatim here. The congressman wrote an email that basically says, I was surprised to see that the event sponsors include Friant Water Authority and other groups that have not supported H.R. 3964, which is the only California water bill this Congress has passed in either the House or the Senate. A zero allocation on the east side is a major problem, so why don't these groups back the one bill that will finally resolve the water crisis? Now, Congressman Nunes wrote this email right before the water rally in Tulare. What was he trying to do? Was he emotional when he wrote this?
It might have been more emotion. That there's a lot of pride. There's a lot of ego in this thing because he co-sponsored that bill with Valadeo. And a lot of part of that bill is the redoing the San Joaquin Valley restoration. And that bill is not going to be changed.
Right, and he says here in this email he's surprised to see the sponsors event include the Friant Water Authority, which struck this deal,
exactly.
And now they want water.
Well, he's not happy with the fact that Friant Water Authority is not supporting his bill, and it's very political because they don't want to support his bill, that bill there, because Friant Water Authority knows that bill will never see the light of day, and they don't want to be on the record to support something so onerous.
But if they don't want to support it, maybe they shouldn't be out there rallying for water, is what Nunes might be saying.
They're trying to find some type of compromise. And
middle ground.
It is critically important because it's not going to happen without that compromise.
All right. Let's put up the next email. Congressman Devin Nunes, same day, this was the second part of that email. It says, as shown in the past, attempts to appease these radicals don't work. Those efforts always end up with us getting less water. When he's talking about the radicals, I thought at first he was talking about the people at the Friant Water Authority. He really wasn't. He was talking about the environmental groups. But it's easy to see when you read that how one could get confused. Okay, who are you calling radicals?
Yeah, and I tell you the truth, I was confused at first blush when I saw that email. How could he be considering Friant water users radicals? I mean, that wasn't conceivable for me to think that.
Yeah, and then what did you think? How long did it take you before?
Well, and I quickly started thinking about the Natural Resource Defense Council, NRDC, and the Sierra Club.
Should the congressman have been more forthcoming with information in this email and more descriptive about who he was talking about?
I think Devin Nunes should have been. I think it was kind of a quickly written, it's kind of one of those things. You got to be ready when you push that send button. You better watch out what you're saying, because you can't pull those things back. You wish you could.
Yeah, I've done that many times.
Yeah, me too.
Many times. I'm sure you've done it, right? Like you
sure.
said. All right, let's. I want to roll some video here. We're talking about water. I've said on this show many times, and I think I even said it on the Bill Manders program, when you turn that sprinkler on, when you turn on the water to wash your hands, when you turn on the water to shave or to brush your teeth, should we remember where that water is coming from? And should we remember when we step in the shower that there is a shortage this year?
I do personally. I'm more cognizant of it right now, leaving the water running or trying to always wash with a full load, always wash dishes when a full load. I can't believe that the city of Fresno is not, and all the major cities in this valley are not mandating, reduce water, fine you for using too much water, lower that baseline or something. because I tell you, the aquifers underneath cities, where we get most of our water, are shrinking badly.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that because
they're at all-time lows.
At an all-time low, that the aquifers, that's the groundwater, the underground. But you have these companies that come in that specialize in drilling, that go underwater, a couple of thousand feet, right, to dig for that water.
Right.
So you're talking about the underground water supply is shrinking in California?
Absolutely.
Well,
Not just on the west side, because they've been pulling a lot of water out of that because they don't have the surface water. That's the reason they built the Friant Dam. That's the reason they built San Luis Reservoir, to decrease the use of groundwater. And the same thing is happening in the city of Fresno and other cities. We need to really cut back on our water use, or we're going to lose it, and there could be catastrophic consequences if we overdraft too much.
Yeah. So, are we in danger of running out of water underground?
Absolutely. If we get these these protracted droughts, and we're forced to not use, we're forced not to have surface water available to us. I mean, there's President already said there's Texas cities that don't have groundwater. And this could happen in some of these areas. There's 21 cities in this Central Valley that normally rely on state water project water, and they're having emergency situations right now. They're not going to have enough drinking water, so they're drilling emergency wells in those cities right now.
The Bay Area has enough water.
Absolutely. The
Hetch Hetchy, right?
Hetch Hetchy is never will a drop of water be taken from Hetch Hetchy for the Delta, for the restoration of the Delta smelt, for any experimentations at all. Their reservoirs at 100%. They get all the water they want. That's part of the irony of this whole thing.
Can we go to court and take some of their water to satisfy the farmers here?
Who knows? I don't know. I mean, say if there's a chance, I would think we've already done it by now, since we don't have water to use at all, and they're getting 100%. I don't know what kind of treaties have been put together to
does that shock you?
Yes, it does.
That Hetch Hetchy is 100% full. Yeah. Bay Area is getting their fill. Yeah. Sacramento's getting their fill. It's shocking to me. Is that shocking to you that we're getting shortchanged here?
It is indeed. It shocks me because it's the irony. Hey, let some of your water go to the environmentalists. Let some of your water go to the Delta and help restore the Delta. But it won't be used.
Because they want their water.
Oh, they think they vote differently than us. They're part of the 38 million people in this state, and we're only 4 million people in this valley, and that's the disconnect. 4 million people. We're a very small part of the state.
Here's one of the shocking things. I talked to Jennifer Buckman. She's the general counsel for the Friant Water Authority, and she told me that it's the biologists who control how much water these fish get versus people. And it's shocking to hear her say that the biologists, in these cases, they determine that the fish will get 3/4 of the allocation. Human beings, us, will get the leftovers.
Exactly.
Is that not a shocking detail?
It doesn't make any sense at all. It's the fish before people, and the farm workers out there are just, it's unfathomable to them that their fish are going to put them into the unemployment line, and we have to have a major community food bank to feed them, every meal throughout the whole summer, so they are able to eat because they don't have any work. And it is shocking to me that the biology, it was another point entirely. The biological opinion is what put this whole thing in motion in 2007, which says that the Delta smelt is in danger. But we do not have enough biology on where that Delta smelt really is. Why? Is it in the northern Delta? Is it anywhere? Are those Delta smelt residing in the pumping areas of the Bill W. Jones pumping plant?
Here's the analogy that I drew from this, and that is, if you're at home and you have an aquarium, make sure that your fish inside the aquarium are getting more water than you. In fact, put yourself at risk for getting dehydrated just to satisfy your goldfish. Yeah. Isn't that the same concept, the same theory?
It certainly is. It's not logical. It's not real. I mean, it's something that we can't ever imagine being reality. It's not for critical thinkers.
In other words, risk going to the emergency room and having an IV put in because you've dehydrated yourself to satisfy your goldfish.
Exactly.
Aren't we doing the same here in the Central Valley?
It looks like exactly the same thing. That's a metaphor that's unfathomable, really.
I mean, it's unimaginable, is it not?
It's inconceivable.
Patrick,
it's
we've got
true.
about 30 seconds left. Where do we go from here on this drought? It's not a drought. It is a drought, but it's also a fight for water.
Yeah, it's a drought. It's definitely a drought in California. It's not as bad as we were going into this year, because we did have some of
But
those
it's a
rain
fight
events.
for water that we do have.
We do have environmental restrictions that are keeping a big bulk of the water that we normally. And it's not just for farmers. It's for cities and also the cities south of Tehachapi's. L.A., San Diego uses this water coming down the State Water Project.
Yeah.
We just hope for rain, hope for an El Nino coming in, and hope for storage. We need to pass that bond in November.
Patrick, good to see you. I
My
appreciate
pleasure.
it. Come back again. I want you on this program. You're a terrific guest.
Well, thank you, John. I appreciate
A
you
wealth
being
of
here.
information, my
Thanks
friend.
for having me.
Oh, thank you. Patrick Cavanaugh, of course, you can hear him on Power Talk, on all the Power Talk stations, including 96.7 each and every day. He's on with Rich Rodriguez on Saturdays as well. We thank him for his insight, and we thank you for being a part of Connect with Me. Back with another edition tomorrow. Have a great day.